Hello, everyone. Welcome to Career Essentials, where we give honest career guidance and beyond. I'm back with MK Career Solutions, and we're going to be covering CVs today, CVs 101. So, first of all, I would like to welcome Mo again. Mo, welcome to our channel.
Thank you, Chira. Thank you for having me. It's great to be back on once again for another episode with you.
No problem at all. It's a pleasure. I believe the last video has some good response. We covered how to stand out on LinkedIn, how to really use LinkedIn to your benefit, how to find that edge through LinkedIn, and people seem to be loving it. We got a good response, so we got MK Solutions back on for more content. So we're going to be covering CVs today. Let's get straight to it. Mo, what do you want to cover about CVs today?
I think it's very important to just go over some top tips and important things that make a great CV. A CV can be a very subjective thing. People have different ideas about what works, what doesn't. And within the company, MK Career Solutions that I work within, I see a lot of CVs on a daily basis. And it's good to get some general points out there to say what makes a good CV and what some points that people can really implement to get ahead and get the edge when it comes to finding a role.
Okay, sounds good. Right, a CV is something that, at early stages, particularly straight after identifying a vacancy you wanted to apply to, that's what you go for. CV cover letter. That's where people can spend a lot of time tweaking it, working on it. People can get paranoid. What should I put? What shouldn't I put? So if you just simply start somewhere, what's in terms of what to put out and presenting, what's the best way to present content on a CV?
I guess the best place to start would be the top of the CV, what would go first and foremost after you've put your name and details, and that's the personal profile. And it's not something that everyone actually includes. Some people jump straight in with skills and employability history, hobbies and interests, etc. But I think a personal profile is really important. It's the first thing that an employer is going to read and see as he looks at your CV, and it can pretty much set the scene for the rest of your CV. We all talk about first impressions, and I actually read an interesting statistic online. An employer on average spends about 6 seconds looking at your CV, and most of that probably will be that personal profile. So having something that starts off with a bit of a summary of your history, what you've got to offer, where you're looking to go is really important, and maybe even a quote of some sort that really makes your CV distinct and summarizes yourself in some shape or form.
Okay. So your the first part, the first section, your personal profile, is a very critical thing when it comes to your CV. You got to make sure that you nail that down, because anyone who's looking at the CV, whether that's human resources or recruitment agents, they are likely to spend that first impression on that bit, and you've got to be able to hook them, grab their attention with what's on there. And if you just move on to anything particular, is there anything particular you want to share on that aspect more?
Yeah, I guess we mentioned briefly LinkedIn before we started, and a common trend I'm starting to see is on LinkedIn, you can almost auto-generate a personal statement, which people use. Sometimes it can work really well, other times not so much. You're pretty much leaving it to the luck of the draw. And instances where it doesn't quite work well is simply when your personal profile is just a list of competencies, articulate, good communication skills, well-driven, rounded, so-and-so professional, etc. When it looks quite generic, it doesn't really stand out, and it can almost deter an employer and almost take 1 point off your CV in the sense that it looks very copied and pasted. So my recommendation would be to make something very personal, make something that truly summarizes you and describes you, and again, makes you stand out and makes you unique, especially in this job environment and day and age. There's so many people applying for jobs. There's a lot of competition for every single vacancy, and having something that is generic or makes it look average isn't really going to help your case at all.
Okay, so avoid any sort of generic content, make it specific, make it personalized for you. That's how you get attention. If you move on to further down the CV more, in terms of what to put on first, a common question that asks is, do I put my education? Do I put my experience? What have you got to say on that?
I would actually say neither of those things, Chira. I would say the next most important thing to place would be a list of key competencies or achievements. It depends on what works best. So for example, I'm come from a sales background, and sales is almost always about humble bragging. It's about expressing yourself and showing your best traits. almost in a subtle and modest way, saying, look at me, this is what I've achieved, this is what I can offer to you and your organization. So maybe a list of key achievements that are both professional and personal. So for example, if we were talking about sales, we could possibly talk about how many times you hit or exceeded your target. If you worked in customer services, maybe times when you've received Employee of the Month or commendations for your work, or maybe even outside, if you've got any hobbies or interests, for example, if you've run marathons, long distance running, done Tough Mudder or anything like that, mentioning some of those achievements I think are very, very important, because leading on from your personal profile, you're leading with the best of you.
Okay, okay, sounds good, sounds good. In terms of the other stuff that goes on, I think there's a big debate and there's a distinction that needs to be done with regards to responsibilities and results. What have you got to share on that, Mo?
Yes, I think a very important element is when you're talking about your actual employment history, talk about results rather than responsibilities. Talk about what you've achieved. Simply stating what you've done will only get you so far, in the sense that you're not really telling your employer what you're capable of. You're only telling them that you can do what it says on the tin, what you've been asked to do. However, if you've talked about what you've achieved in your role, it just takes it to another level, really. For example, again, if we talk about, say, for example, if you were in sales, how many sales did you achieve within a given time? How did you utilize your communication skills? If you were in a general role, that was a clerical role, like an office role, how well did you complete all of your work within an allotted time? Talk about skills and how you use those skills to achieve results.
Okay, okay. I think you covered some fantastic points there on what to put and how to put it. In terms of layout, or what would you suggest? You know, paragraphs, point forms. What would you suggest on that aspect?
I'd say with a layout, a few important tips is to keep everything compact into one direction, so either left of center or centered. Where possible, use bullet points as much as possible and avoid clustering in paragraphs, particularly when talking about job responsibilities or anything that requires a bit more detail. Anything that can be a bit clumpy gets lost in the ether. And as we said, if you imagine that your CV is going to be scanned over top to bottom, they're not going to really spend much time looking at really dense information, whereas bullet points separates that information really well.
Okay, so bullet points to make it stand out, easy to capture, easy to read for the employer or recruiter. Okay, wonderful. Are there any other things that you'd like to share? I think there's a common question that I get asked a lot is, say you're a graduate, you just finished university. How can a graduate put up specific achievements on their CV? Because we're talking about listing results and achievements. How can a graduate who's just fresh out of university list out this on his CV?
I think as a graduate, there's a lot of things that one can do to really make yourself stand out or show that you're capable and worthy. At the end of the day, when you're a graduate, you're talking about potential, not someone who's been there, done it, a seasoned professional, someone who has the potential to do well within a role, often without a lot of experience. And to do that, focus on the skills that you do have and focus on the achievements you do have. And you're very, very welcome to draw back as far back as high school, talk about anything that you've achieved. Talk about, for example, if you were part of any societies, were you part of any sporting teams? Even talk about academic results, for example, if you achieved very highly within the context of your educational institution, if you mention those things work really well. So perhaps, as we mentioned earlier, after a personal profile, a list of key achievements. Of course, most of them will probably be extracurricular rather than professional, but simply mentioning them just show that you have the potential to succeed in professional life.
Okay, okay, excellent. I think that's a common question that I get a lot. How can I list out when I haven't got experience? What can I do? And I think Mo covered some fantastic tips there where you can show your potential and you can talk about the achievements you've done, maybe specific any assignments you've did in university or the dissertation. You can talk about the specific things there. You can talk about your potential and the skills you've acquired and how that's going to help the role you are applying for. And feel free, as Mo suggested, to go down to even high school level and mention some of those traits, because that's certainly something that employers, recruitment agents will be interested in. Thank you very much for covering those fantastic points there. We covered a fair bit on CVs today. There's a whole lot of things that we can cover. If you have any specific questions on CVs, feel free to leave them on the comment below, and we will answer them in another video. We'll be more than happy to share our thoughts. You may have specific questions that from your personal experience that you struggle with. Feel free to leave a comment there with your personal questions. We'll be happy to make another video covering those aspects. And I'm sure you found this useful. By all means, share it with anyone who you think you're going to find this useful. You never know whose life you're going to impact. There's so many people looking for jobs. If you share this video, they're going to find it useful. You might just be helping them land a job and help them with some money, with some cash flow, with a paycheck, and feed themselves, look after their families. So you're doing massive value by sharing this content. At Career Essentials, we give you honest career guidance and beyond. Feel free to check out some of the other videos. There's massive content there, massive value for you to benefit from. So from MK Career Solutions, Mo, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Chira. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure once again, and let's do this again soon, hopefully.
Yes, we'll be having more back on for more videos. So thank you very much for joining us today. I'll see you in another video soon.
Thank you.